r/askreddit, if you have ever walked out of a cinema because the film was so bad, what one was it? You know, it's rated R for a few reasons. Big blue cock being one of them. My mom took me and my siblings to see Titanic when we were kids. Of course there's only tits in that movie, but it was a mistake on her part. LOL. Epic movie. Wasn't epic at all. Oh, that film is dog shit. OMG, it has a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes, it must be garbage and I wanna see it, LOL. Let's add date movie, disaster movie, and vampires suck to this list. Just all the same crude, unfunny, humor and devoid of anything redeeming. I left Frozen when I was 11 because I was scared, LMAO. The horror movie Frozen or the Disney movie. I was terrified of Ursula from The Little Mermaid when I was younger. Now she's my favorite character, LOL. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Once we got to the montages that were all of season 1, they didn't think were worth it. It was clear this wasn't the show I loved. The only good thing that this film brought were the comments roasting it. I watched this on a plane and walked out. Oh, I remember vividly. It was Battlefield Earth. The shot angles kept being tilted this way and that for no reason, and I started tilting my head so that things would be level. Then my friend joined in. Then we simultaneously were like, are we going to cramp our necks for this? And walked out. Green Lantern. Even Ryan Reynolds acknowledges how bad it is. He landed his wife, though. It was the price we had to pay for their love. Worth it for the jokes in the Deadpool films. Not the worst movie ever made, but the only movie I ever walked out of was The Butterfly Effect. I wasn't really enjoying it to begin with, but the girl who went with me had been sad as a child by her father, so when the basement scene came on I looked at her and could tell she was petrified with PTSD, so I said, this movie sucks, you wanna go? And I got her out of there. Glad you did that. Hope she's doing okay wherever she is. Jack and Jill with Adam Sandler. Normally I like his movies, but not only was Jack and Jill his worst movie ever, I think it might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Hilariously, one time on Survivor they made the reward from a reward challenge getting to see an early screening of Jack and Jill. Link reactions varied wildly, and all I could think about was how they were torturing these poor starving people by foisting the Sandler steaming pile of shit on them. Striptease. Burt Reynolds in boxer shorts, a cowboy hat and boots, covered in Vaseline, rubbing himself with dryer lint from Demi Moore's laundry. I do not know how that movie ends, just know that I asked for my money back on a $1 noon matinee. The book is really good though. Jupiter Ascending. You know it was horrible when I didn't want to see more Mila Kunis. As Roger Ebert put it, the director, Roger Christian, has learned from better films that directors sometimes tilt their cameras, but he has not learned what. I saw this once when I was ill about 4 years ago, and I always throw the quote of "Did you know bees are attracted to royalty?" every time me and my boyfriend see a bee. Pacific Rim Uprising. Worst sequel even made. It felt like it was made by a toy company to sell merch. Emoji Movie. Took my brothers to see it while I was babysitting. Almost committed suicide in the theater. This was showing on a flight I was on and people still walked out. I work in animation, and in my 16 years in the industry, Emoji Movie was one of the only 2 movies I rejected the offer to work on. LOL. Suicide Squad 2016. The movie had really bad pacing and bland action. About halfway through we were so bored we got up and left. It was one of those movies where you're not really given much reason to care how it ends. Still stands as the only one I've ever walked on. Test screenings don't like the movie but they love the trailer, so let's just hire the trailer company to recut the entire movie. Who could have predicted that such a genius move like that could ever backfire? I almost walked out on Jurassic World Dominion, but my friend bought a ticket for me and was super excited about it, so I stayed just for him. I am a huge dinosaur nerd, I love Jurassic Park and am generally happy to see anything featuring dinosaurs. It doesn't happen often so I'm not picky, just give me my big lizards, thank you. But Dominion was on a whole new level of bad, just what? Second time I've seen this one listed here. I don't even think Dominion is the worst of the trilogy, TBH. I've never walked out of a movie and I saw Cats opening weekend. The Love Guru walked out to see The Happening for the 3rd time instead, LMAO. Mariska Hargitay. The Happening is a fucking disaster of a movie. Mark's acting is pathetic in it. The Last Jurassic whichever. I watched the more recent ones a few weeks ago and was underwhelmed. They made me doubt whether the original was as good as I remembered, so I ended up watching that too. I was worried it would seem incredibly dated. I last saw it as a kid and didn't want to spoil the memories by seeing it through the lens of modern special effects. It Was awesome. No regrets. Tenet, not because of the movie, but because of the sound quality. I'm not a native English speaker and I had a hard time understanding the dialogues. Without understanding the dialogues, it was hard to follow the story. Trust me, understanding the dialogue hardly made it easier. Wonder Woman 1984. I streamed it but I left the house, does that count LOL? I walked out of 28 Days Later. Not because it was bad. I was 9 years old and snuck in and it was freaking me the fuck out. Watched it years later and enjoyed it. I walked out on it, but then decided I wanted to be back inside. They let me back in, but then I walked out again. I saw Prometheus twice in theaters. At the second show, a group of 10-year-olds snuck in. The first R-rated scene, which features an alien worm/snake that crawls inside someone's shattered arm, caused these kids to flee the theater in an absolute panic. I imagine they will never forget that day. I generally just switch from trying to enjoy it to enjoying roasting the shit out of it. MST3K really gave me an amazing tolerance for bullshit cinema. I hope you've checked out Rip Tracks. It's MST3K with more modern movies as well as the older shitty movies/short films. I went to see the Total Recall remake with my then GF. We walked out about 40 minutes in. We were also the only people in there. Without getting one's ass to Moz, what's the point? I saw 28 Days with Sandra Bullock when I was 12 with a few friends. For some reason we thought it was related to 28 Days Later and was about zombies. We were very disappointed. I was made when I found out that Sense and Sensibility wasn't the sequel to Dumb and Dumber. I too have watched The Office. Link. 28 Days came out 2 years before 28 Days Later. Only movie I've ever walked out of was The Golden Compass. I remember the review. The worst thing to happen to cats since dogs. Movie executive, okay so it's polar bears in motherfucking battle armor. Boom, there's your movie. I paid so I stay. I think they call that the sunk cost fallacy. My wife and I tried seeing The Aristocrats. After about 20 minutes we realized that it just wasn't very enjoyable so we left. The theater next door had just started showing a film called The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill, so went in there instead. That turned out to be a pretty good movie. And GT, not to be confused with the heartwarming family film, The Aristocats. Gross. They finally woke up. Got the fuck kicked out of me and it reversed my brain damage. The much cooler name Ball Earthers. My favorite flat earth joke is also a mom joke. Your mom was so fat that the earth was flat until they buried her. Release the butthole cut. Haha, I see what you did there. No, but seriously. If it were round, and how come when my dog runs off does me not reappear behind me? Wake up, sheeple. Next you'll be telling me that NASA didn't fake the moon. I couldn't get girls to date me. Maybe you should have tried another subject. I have a cousin who generally believed the earth was flat. She finally came around when she went to one of those conventions and realized how scammy it was. I just kept walking. Eventually I came around. And it sort of involves telepathy. Like, the fantasy is a guy who, with smoldering passion and good looks, pushes you to do the things you actually want to do and is really enthusiastic and excited about you doing them. Real life boundary pushers push for them and not for you. Sean Spencer from Psych. Dude is way too much of an attention whore to stand being around for more than a few hours. Damn, never thought I'd see a Psych reference here. Phil Dunphy would probably be a bit too much for me. Which I'm actually quite sad about because he's the best. Would he though? Phil seems like a fun guy, albeit the carelessness and obliviousness at times. If you get really high right before watching it, Cats is an absolute blast. I've been told several times by people I remind them of Feely always thought it was a compliment. Chris Griffin, he has a nice paper on Family Guy but I would find him kind of annoying. I liked him better when he was just a dumbass for the first like 6 seasons. He became such an asshole at some point I stopped liking his character. Rory Gilmore, or even Lorelei or Emily. Sookie would be it for me. She would drive me absolutely nuts. I hate when people cannot handle their own lives and constantly freak out. Dwight. Rick Sanchez. Anything from Rick and Morty and Gene Rall, would not be fun. Sherlock Holmes. Insufferable know-it-all. I'm reminded of that scene in the first Robert Downey Jr. film, where Watson introduces Holmes to his fiancée. Holmes shows off his skills by pointing out details of the random people around him. Mary gets all, do me. Do me, and so Holmes does start pointing out details about her and it gets uncomfortably personal real quick. My parents took me and my sister to see a cool looking superhero movie when we were kids. That movie was Watchmen. My parents pulled us out after the big blue penis scene. Edit for clarification, not to say it's a bad movie, it's one of my favorite movies. Very few people would actually survive living with Sheldon Cooper.